everyone, and welcome back to Spectrum Talk. My name is Ruby Jones, and I'm here today with R&B and soul vocalist and songwriter Such, who will be headlining at Denver Urban Spectrum's anniversary event on October 19th. Thank you so much, Such, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I am so thrilled, really.
Too, and we're really looking forward to this October performance and getting to know all about you. So I really appreciate
Oh,
the time to chat with me.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just jump right in. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Massachusetts and I grew up in Massachusetts and New York.
Oh, cool. What part of Massachusetts?
So I was born in Boston. Then when I was about 6 months old, the family moved to Long Island in New York. I lived there up until I was 12, then moved back to Massachusetts in this tiny town called Lancaster. Most people have never heard of it. There's only one flashing yellow light. Just so that you understand, there are no stoplights. It's like one flashing yellow light. Um, and lived there up until I went to college.
That's so funny. My mom was actually born in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and I don't know if you've
Really?
heard of that. I never have heard of it outside of my mom's experience, but
Right.
yeah, so her story is kind of similar. That's cool.
Like a really small town, just yeah, it was one of
Yeah.
those.
And so I've seen something that said that you were um trained in Chicago, is that right? Or you have some Chicago experience too?
Yeah, so I lived in Chicago before I lived in Denver. And so
Oh,
I consider that was definitely a vocal training. I was a part of like two churches, and if anybody knows, like if you can sing at church, because church folk, they are the harshest critics because everybody can sing, then you can pretty much sing anywhere.
that's awesome. And I know the church landscape in Chicago is very vibrant. So
Oh, for sure, for
very
sure.
cool. So what motivated you to start performing for audiences?
Ooh, that's a good question. And I think it sort of goes way back. Um, growing up on the East Coast, I'm Haitian American. My parents immigrated here from Haiti. And I didn't know anybody, like none of my friends' parents were entertainers. They were all like doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, and whatever else. So I didn't grow up necessarily knowing that you could sort of do that. But I always sang. My dad's a pastor, so I would sing in church. I'd be a part of choirs. Like I always loved music. And as soon as I was able to in school, I started playing the flute. I joined every choir possible, did jazz band and all these different things and loved it. And then when I was 15, my band director told me to audition for a group called the High School Grammy Jazz Ensembles. Now I think it's called Grammy Band. I think it may be called something else now, where basically you audition, and if you get in, and it's kids from all over the US, Canada, and Mexico, I think. If you get in, you get a 10-day all expenses paid trip to LA. You get to perform at jazz clubs all over LA.
Nice.
You record an album, you perform at the Grammy nominee party, and then you go to the Grammys.
Oh, that's
So,
exciting.
yeah. I auditioned and I got in, and I was completely intimidated because every kid there knew that they were going to be musicians. They all went to performing arts high school. Some of them were already on their second and third albums. Like it was a whole different world. But what it was a slice of a musician's life. And it was that moment that I was like, ooh, I could do this. Like I'd never been
Yeah.
exposed to it in that way. And I was like, ooh, I could do this. So I came back home and I did a PowerPoint presentation for my parents as to why they should let me go to the nearest performing arts high school, which was
Wow.
about an hour away in Boston. And they were like, yeah, no, like what?
Oh no.
And yeah, and like, to their credit, they too didn't know anybody who like this was literally their career. Their
Yeah,
whole idea was that it was like struggling musician, like why?
right.
They knew that I was talented, but they're like, that's all good and well, but we need you to have that can be your plan B or C.
Hmm.
So what you gonna get a degree in? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so from that moment on, I was like, okay, well then music will be my outlet. And I have two degrees that I do not work in.
Oh wow, what are they in?
So my first degree was in exercise science, pre-physical therapy, because I wanted to be a physical therapist. And then when I started working, at a PT office in Colorado because I was going to go to PT school here. All of the PTs that I worked with, they were like, it's oversaturated. Why don't you look into nursing? And I was like, oh, okay. So I went to Regis and became a nurse. And I was a nurse for 4 years. Yeah.
That's really cool. Wow,
Hmm.
that's a very varied um path, but I'm sure your parents wanted to keep you close too, especially the idea that you're starting out as a musician and then they already have this idea that, they see the struggling artist, which, I don't think they're too far off with that, but
Hmm.
they probably didn't want you to go too far away with that.
Right. But I did. I went to college in California. So we were in Massachusetts and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go all the way.
A good life experience, I guess. And I was
Yeah.
going to ask you if you're self-taught or educated. So it sounds like a little both. Have you had any kind of vocal training?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say it's a combination of both. Um, I've never like gone to school. I don't have a degree in music,
Hmm.
but I do have a vocal coach. And so but I didn't have formal training until I want to say maybe about 10 years ago. So yeah, most of a huge chunk of what I did, I mean, listen, life will train you too. So I feel like I got church training, I got performance training, and a whole bunch of other ways. But I think when I was ready to be like, yo, I really want to buckle down and figure out this vocal thing, because unlike other instruments, my
Mhm.
instrument is housed in my body, which is a whole different ball game. And
Right.
so much of singing is not about what you hear,
Mhm.
because uh, what I'm hearing is not what you're hearing. What I'm hearing, it's sort of vibrating through my face and all these different things in the bones, and it's very different. So singing as a vocalist is so much about how it feels.
Mm.
And learning that has been one of the biggest and most empowering things.
That's
So,
really cool. How would you
mhm.
describe your artistic style or your entertainment style?
My artistic style, I mean, as far as like what genre or like what my approach is when I'm performing, or
Yeah, your genre. Would you say that you're more like laid back and chill? Would you say that you're more energetic or just like
oh
what
yeah.
most comfortable presence on stage?
Oh, on stage. Oh, I think I'm definitely energetic. I love to have a lot of fun, but I also can be laid back and chill. I think I'm a storyteller, so I
Uh,
talk a lot. um, and I think the magical thing about performing is that it's literally co-creation between myself and the audience. So even if I'm performing the same show 10 nights in a row, every night is going to be different because the audience needs different things and we're creating this space, right? So I think I also adapt to like what is the vibe of the audience, you know what I mean? And we sort of it's definitely not just like, oh, I'm singing to you. It's definitely interactive. Um and it's a good time.
I'm so happy to hear that because I'm an avid like concert goer and music
Oh
enthusiast.
yeah.
I love music. So to hear an artist say that you really pick up what the audience is feeling and needing, like that's really big. And even when you
Hmm.
said that with your artistic style and everything, or what you're hearing is really based on like something totally different than what the audience hears, and that life training, like the audience feedback for an artist must be hugely important. That's
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. For sure. And I think and that's why like my favorite part of my job is performing.
Mhm.
Like literally, I think that's recording for me is actually where the challenge is,
Uh,
because I do it in isolation.
right.
And it just feels like, oh, so let me just, and you get to become a perfectionist and you're like, let me just, I could do this better. And I have like 50 million takes, but then the soul is gone. There's freedom in performing. It don't
Yeah.
matter if I crack, I do it one time, we're moving on, right? Like there's no redo. So
And we
there's
probably
that's
don't even know.
listen, right? Because there's just it's weird, but because you get nervous. I always get nervous before I perform, but there's freedom in being able to just be in the moment
Mm.
and just I can't go back and recreate the moment. And
Yeah.
that's the freedom of performing. Whereas in the studio, you feel like you can. And so to be able to, and also the crowd feeds me. So the synergy, the energy they're giving me, it literally powers and fuels me too at the same time. So it's great. That's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Well, I'm happy for you that you get to do what you love because it sounds like
Yeah.
you're really, really passionate about it.
Yeah.
Who or what would you say is your biggest inspiration, whether that's another musician or just in life, your biggest inspiration?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to figure out like how could I, you know, I'm trying to think what is my biggest inspiration. There are so many things that are inspiring. So I'm an avid ear hustler. I love listening to people's conversations because they're so interesting, and I love stories. And I'm just thinking of like, for me to be able to write, I have to live and I have to experience things, right? So like, also a huge part of my job is living, because if I don't live, what do I have to sing about? You know what I mean? At some point, I start running out of things because I haven't lived, I haven't experienced, I haven't, tried new things or whatever else. Um, I think people are my inspiration, honestly. Like, I think people, situations, circumstances, what's going on, conversations. I love conversations. Those are things that definitely inspire me. And then as far as like musicians and artists go, I can't narrow that down to one. There are so many people that like inspire me in different ways. Um, I consider, my genre, which there's a wide range of things, but to be somewhere along the R&B soul realm. So I love neo soul, so I love Jill Scott, love Erica Badu, love Maxwell, love Music Soul Child. Like, but then I also think of when my sort of secular music education began, and that was in the 90s. So 90s R&B is so nostalgic for me, like, and it just
Oh,
transports
yeah,
me back. And there's something really special about that decade and the music, like the R&B music that was created then. I just,
I agree.
right? I
I
mean, I know it's funny because, every generation is always like, you know, my music is the best music. What is this? New music is not as good. But I'm like, nah, I actually really feel like 90s R&B is bomb. Like, for
yeah.
real.
Yeah, I get kind of irritated these days when like every song is remixed and replayed, and then like the beginning of the song will come on, and I'm thinking it's the original, but
The,
it's not.
that is so true. See, and that is a testament to, you see, that's why, right, they're redoing all the stuff from the 90s. And I'm like, because,
Yeah, greatest
yeah.
music for sure. Well,
Hmm.
on that note and kind of switching gears a little bit, how do you think modern technology has aided in your quest for musical success with all the changes from the 90s music and the 2000s music to where we are now?
Yeah. Do you mean like as far as just musically or um access? Because I think that of course the structure of the music industry has changed,
Yeah.
where people don't have to go through gatekeepers to hear music. You can have direct access to somebody through social media. I mean, I think social media has made a big difference. But also there's, because of that, I think that there's like a combination of things, right? Because you have direct access to everybody, there's there are more people. So
Mhm.
cutting through the clutter is a little bit more challenging too.
Yeah.
Whereas in, I think before, the hits came from radio hits and whatever else, and you got your song put on the radio, it was a hit. It just feels like now you gotta navigate it more. But as an independent artist, that's sort of a dream for me because yeah, I have direct access to my fans, and they get to see my personality, and there are all these different things in which, social media has provided access to folks. So
Well, you asked which one, but I think you answered for both, really. I mean,
yeah.
because you're right, that access that we have to artists is important. But then also as an artist, are you looking for cues as far as like different musical elements and things like that? I don't know, like getting away from like the live band and doing more electronic music. Is that something that you feel like audiences are asking for, or something that with that access and with this huge abundance of music that's available to us, is it something that you feel like is a trend that you play more to, or do you just stick with your own style and whatever's going on with the whole modern changes, you're like, whatever, I'm going to do me?
I feel like maybe it's a mix of both.
Okay.
Um, it's really important for me to be authentic to myself though. And I live in live music. Like I like that. So like when I record with my band. My band actually really records stuff. There are some songs that are more electronic than others, but I perform live with a band. I'm not the biggest fan of tracks. I'd rather sing a cappella than sing with a track. Like honestly, it because I feel like it's very prohibitive, but sometimes, you got to do what you got to do. So I love live music. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And so much of my songs are birthed piano vocal, and then I get my band together and they come and they do, they put their thing on it. And so a lot of times, before I even record a song, I'll perform it. And through the performance, I'm actually sort of working through the kinks of the
That's
song.
so
I'll
cool.
try it. I'll try stuff out on audiences all the time and be like, I got a new song. Let me, you know what I mean? Just to see. And then from that, it's weird. I know, because a lot of times it's the reverse, but sometimes I'll just try new things because things are birthed very organically and with live instrumentation. And so
Yeah.
even the songs that were completely in the studio and 100% electronic, when it comes to me performing live, I always have a live version of songs. And so, yeah, I guess so. I sort of do both.
Yeah.
But I want to stay true to who I am, because I want the audience to know who I am as an artist, and not just somebody who's shifting. Now, artists will change and shift and try new things, but if I'm not there organically, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I think you just revealed an industry secret because when I'm in a crowd and musician is like, I have a new song, I'm really sitting there looking for the new song. I'm like, yeah, it's a new song that's out. It's so cool to know that you're like experimenting as you go. That makes me feel special as like an
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's really fun. It's really
yeah,
fun because you try new things. You're like, ooh, that sort of fell flat, or ooh, that was cool. It's just like it's happening in time. And because the audience is a part of my creative process too.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I feel like I want to ask you, when it comes to like performing abroad, like do you ever do like little European tours or tours in other countries, African tours, and
Oh
anything
my
like
God.
that where you notice audience differences with different
Hmm.
voices?
For sure. Okay. So I haven't gone to the motherland yet, and I need to. Okay. That is on the bucket list of life, and it needs to happen within
Yeah.
the next few years. Like that, it was going to happen. Actually, 2020 was the year that of course, everything was
Or
supposed to happen in 2020,
I
right?
know.
That was the year that I was supposed to go to Ghana.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So it's gonna happen though. But I have done tours in Europe. I've done London, Paris, Amsterdam, Birmingham, Manchester. Um, and I think what is really cool about them, because of course, like I'm building my fan base there. So the people that come to the shows don't always know my music.
Yeah.
And there's something really cool about it because they will jam as if they know my music. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Because it's like, what? Like, I'm so used to people being like, okay, I have to know your music for me to actually like sing along. But these
Hmm.
folks, they don't know the words and they're like, we are in it. And I think that there's something to be said about how interested they are in the artist, and that it doesn't really matter that like I'm not well known or whatever else. There's just a lot of love, I feel like, in London and whatever else. Right before the pandemic hit, like January of 2020, I toured with PJ Morton. I opened up for him. And what was so awesome about opening up for PJ is the kind of audience he has.
Mm.
He has very musically inclined people. Okay. So I have a very interactive show. So I have people singing and whatever else, and I break them up into parts: soprano, alto, tenor. Okay. And what I do, and what I tell you, he sang like a choir in every spot we went to. I was like,
Oh.
this is heavenly, like so wonderful. That's been really cool. I performed in Bogota in Colombia,
Mhm.
and I thought that was going to be tough because I don't speak Spanish and I talk a lot. But it was one of my best shows just because, and I know this is cheesy, but music really is a universal language.
Uh,
Like it really, really is. And so many people came up to me afterwards and were like, oh my gosh, we loved it. And you would think that language would have been a barrier, and it wasn't. And it was, yeah. I think about it till this day and I'm like, oh, that was such a good show where I
Yeah.
could just feel everybody. We just felt like it was great. It was great. So I think that I don't know what the word that I can say for in other countries, but there's an openness to a new experience that exists
Mhm.
where I feel like sometimes here people can be like, yeah, let me impress me. You know what I mean? And they're just like, no, this is amazing. It's music and we're here for it.
Well, yeah,
So,
and like you said, how there's this tendency to like, oh, okay, well, I'll support you if I'm familiar with you, if I know your songs
yes,
along.
yes,
So that's
yeah.
nice. That's nice to hear.
Hmm.
Well, a minute ago, you said something about access, and you talked about how you have access to your fan base, and your fan base has access to you. And I gotta say, your personality is amazing. Like you're such a person.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I've looked at your social media. It's executed really, really well. Do you have a team that does that, or do you do a lot of that yourself? Because a lot of it feels like this is me, this is who I am. I'm talking to you directly as an
Yeah,
artist
no,
fan.
yeah, it's me. Yeah, it's
That's
me.
so
Hmm.
cool. So how did you learn to use social media as a tool to promote your career? Is that something you just have been experimenting with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Uh,
trial and error. It's trial and error. It's figuring out things. It's being like, okay, it's trial and error. That's
yeah.
really what I can say. Like, oh, okay, this makes more sense to do, or I want to talk about this. But it's really important for me to be authentic and not be manicured or, do you know what I mean? Like, I really want, if I meet you in person, that you're like, this is what I thought you were going to be like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Based off of my social media, that there's not this huge disconnect where you're like, oh my gosh, you're so warm on social media, but I meet you in person and you're like, stay
Exactly.
away. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's really important that that it's very authentic. And
Well,
so, yeah.
that's really great. And everybody raves about your social media. Like your manager,
Oh,
my publisher, they're like, oh yeah, she's a social media genius. I'm like, that's cool. Teach me.
oh, yeah. I mean,
That's great.
listen, I honestly, I feel like social media is a really cool tool, but sometimes it lulls us into a false sense of security of knowing people
Yeah.
that we don't actually know. And so, make no mistake, I love like for real interaction, like person to person, because I think that's where the real magic happens. Like, and that's why I love performing live because that
Yeah.
is like like we are really like in the same space. There's something really special about that.
Well,
So
do you foresee any industry changes that might affect how you perform or might change things drastically like as you go? Is there any kind of like insider information? Like, how everything went from cassette tapes to then CDs to then
right,
film music and like are we gonna start having like at-home concerts or what do you think are gonna be the big
possibly. I
changes
mean,
on the road?
that's a good question. I definitely think the pandemic opened up some doors as far as what we have access to in our homes, right? And then you think about what's the Apple thing? Is it the Vision Pro where you're going to be able
Yeah.
to be like courtside of games and like write in concerts. So, yeah, I think we're probably headed in that direction. And like with everything, I'll adapt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean, what choice do we have, right? Or maybe I'll just have like small, intimate, gatherings and performances because I also love those too. I
Mhm.
also love like I've done house concerts in the past, and those are so special. Like also, so whatever it is, I'll make sure to adapt. Yeah.
Yeah, be ready for it. That's really cool. I know that there's a lot of people who are like, no, no, no more changes. So it's really
Yeah.
nice that you're open to it and adaptable and like
Yeah.
for whatever that as I keep talking about being a fan and like a music lover and everything, but honestly, as somebody who is who really thrives on your energy as an artist, it's good to know that like you're not gonna fall off and just here when something changes and you'll continue,
Right.
meet
Yeah.
me where I am as a fan.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
well, are there any personal or professional goals that you're working on for yourself or for your music career?
Mm. as far as I feel like one of the things, and this is like always my goal, is for every song to be like the fullest expression of itself. Like, sometimes people are like, oh, I need to make this song. But I think I'm really open to the growth that like I've experienced and understanding that there may be differences in my sound and things that have changed over the past 4 years, right? Like the last time I released an album was 2019. It's a very different world than the world that we're in today. And as I work on new music, I think I'm so intimately aware that I've changed in so many ways, and I want that to be a reflection in my music. That's my biggest goal, to like really to do that. And I think all of us as humans, we've been given away because we're communal beings for us to give back, right? To culture, to community, to the world, to humanity. And I just I want to do my part. Like an artist's job, I think, is to be a reflection of the times, to, write things that you guys can resonate with, that you guys can feel, that you are like, yo, that is my story, right? Like
Mhm.
that is the thing. And I don't take that responsibility lightly. And it's just my way of giving back. And I want to do that. I want to do it justice. That's my biggest goal. I think that's my why. Like, mhm.
Well, I was going to ask you next what excites you most about creating a modern, legacy. And I think that you just answered that too, because putting that at the heart of your work, that is a legacy, right? Like you're building
Yeah,
from the heart. You're not just building on like views or whatever you think people want to hear. It's really coming from
right.
are as a person. That's really
Yeah, for sure. And I think my overarching thing, right? Like with everything that I've done, when I was a nurse, I'm also a real estate agent.
oh gosh.
Um,
So you're
I know
everything.
I've been doing the most. Listen, but there is one thing that I feel like is the thread throughout all of the things that I do. And ultimately, I think it has to do with holding space for people.
Mm,
And I do it in my music because I want to hold space for you. I want you to be able to be like, this is a safe space. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel valued. That's the power of music. And I think that is what I've done throughout my whole life. As a nurse, you hold space for folks. As a real estate agent, you hold space for people. Oh, and when I grow up, I want to be a matchmaker. That's
oh my
also holding space
gosh.
for folks. So, um,
You could just do
I,
it in your
yeah,
shows. You could just like match make people at your
I
show.
know. Oh my goodness. One of the best things that like has happened at my shows a few times are people proposing to other,
Oh, wow.
yes, which is like, first off, that is like the hugest gift and compliment. Like literally you chose my show to propose,
Yeah,
to the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. How amazing.
that's
Um,
cute.
but there's something really just, yeah, lovely and special about it. So I feel like my purpose is to hold space
Mhm.
and music is my avenue.
Nice. Well, have you
Mhm.
ever gone from someone proposing at your show to then singing at their wedding?
Ooh,
You
no,
got to
I
tell the next
haven't.
person who proposes, you got to be like, yep, you got to book me for your wedding now.
That
That's
is
really
a great
cool.
idea.
Yeah.
I will sing that. I will sing her down the aisle. Okay.
Yes, there you go. That would be beautiful. Well, you just said that you haven't had a CD since 2000, or not an album, I guess, because we don't use
hmm
CDs. I'm old. But the last one was in 2019. So are
hmm
you working on any special music right now? Do you have any upcoming tours coming up?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna be touring in the fall
Okay,
and I'm working on an EP right now, which is really exciting. I'm excited. The
nice.
music's gonna be good. And I feel like it's gonna be a reflection of where I am. And that's always the fun things about albums and songs, is that it's sort of a snapshot of where the artist is.
Hmm.
And I write from experience, I write from my life, I write from other people. Like I told you, I'm an ear hustler, so I'll listen to other people talking and be like, that sounds like a good song. It would be like, a good song subject or title or whatever else. um So yeah, that'll be probably coming out in the summer or the fall.
Well, that's exciting. That's all the time we have today, but I'm just so happy that I got a chance to speak with you, to meet you. I've loved learning more about you and your music, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you perform here in Denver on October 19th. So thank you so much again for making the time for this.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And as far as like following me on social media, because I will respond, and that is my thing. On Instagram, it's at I am such. If you're on X, formerly known as Twitter, I'm at such, and you can just find me on Facebook. I am such. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning back in to Spectrum Talk. If you'd like to learn more about Such, do what she said. Make sure that you follow her on social media. Also, her website is www.imsuch.com. To learn more about the Denver Urban Spectrum's anniversary celebration on October 19th, visit denverurbanspectrum.com and check out the information below in the description box. Thanks again. Take care.